is now in the past. And even though I'm over 60 years old, I look to the future with some optimism. Let me also say that I hope you and your dear ones are fine, and that the sun is shining on you as brightly as it is shining here this morning. As you can see from the address on this letter, I am no more with the university. I retired over a year ago and moved to the village where I have a farm. My wife died 6 months ago, and since her death, I have been rather lethargic and neglectful of my other responsibilities. But this morning, I reread Plutarch's letters of consolation to his wife after the death of their 2-year-old daughter. I came across this line and I felt as if they spoke to me directly. For each person takes grief in of his own accord. But once it has fixed itself with the passing of time and become his companion and household intimate, it will not quit him even at his earnest desire. We must therefore resist it at the door. But let me not bore you with my ramblings, the ramblings of an old man. I write all this only because I imagine you as someone like myself, someone who lives mostly in the imagination. We are sooner or later going to have to face life, come face to face with experience, and that will overwhelm us. In the imagination, things are more imaginable. We can think up a million solutions in our minds without fear of loss of dignity or having to lower our aims. But in real life, these things almost crush us, and we realize how like everyone else we really are. There's nothing really special about us. We must lower our expectations, learn humility like everyone else, and move on from there. But now, let us talk about you. Have you done anything about your ambition to write biographies? This morning, I read your essay, A Plan for a True History of Katie, in which you propose to model your work on Plutarch's parallel lives and thereby achieve a truly human history of your people. I hope you have. I have already mentioned it to a few friends of mine who are in the publishing business, and they have expressed their keenness to see it. I'm not writing this to rush you into finishing your book, just to encourage you on a worthy ambition. Write soon and let me know how you are doing. I remain yours, James K. Bandatan. Unfortunately, we couldn't publish your essay, A Plan for a True History, because the quarterly was scrapped by the university due to lack of financial resources. But I took the liberty of sending it to other history journals that I am sure we want to publish it. For 3 months after his brother's death, Mamo sat, mostly out on the veranda and stared into space. Things had moved fast since the riots. The Mai, after his close shave with death, had ordered the release of all detainees. He said he didn't want anything to spoil the anniversary celebrations. But unfortunately, things had not worked out as planned for the celebrations. The minister did not come, neither did the military governor. It was a lackluster affair. The villagers were too busy looking at the sky for signs of rain or mourning their dead relatives to attend. Only the police, with their rifles alert for any sign of threat, formed the audience. In the evenings, Mamo would stare at the hills when the sun hung over them, red and dying, and he would imagine the graveyard beneath the hills, just out of sight, with the baobab trees round and tall, their huge, velvety, pear-shaped fruit, which the Reverend Drinkwater called monkey apple in his relentless search for equivalent to the word he knew. And think of how all the houses at the foot of the hills lay in the graveyard shadow. Then he will say to himself, all my life I've lived literally in the shadow of death. When he looked back on his life, he saw the headstone line up like milestones. Sometimes friend and neighbor came to visit and would try to take his mind away from his morbid thoughts. But he mostly listened and only faithfully talked to them. He wanted to tell them that he was not sitting like this out of sadness or in mourning for his brother. He had come to terms with his loss. What he was doing was simply measuring his life, putting it on the scale to see which way it tilted, if so far it had been worth anything at all. His uncle Ilya had visited him yesterday, and they had sat by side on the veranda. He had come up with a new scheme to get the authorities to reopen the school. He was collecting signatures. His aim was to get the signature of every single citizen of Ketin, and then send his signatures to the military administrator. Mamo said it was a good idea. His uncle was over 70, but still a fire burned in him. As he was leaving, he had put a hand on Mamo's shoulder and said, "This is life, there is nothing more. The trick is never to give up." More than once, Mamo had tried to whip himself up into some sort of writing frenzy, and he had gone as far as jotting down the things he would write about, the people he would interview. In his mind, he was now clear about what shape his book would take. It will be in 15 to 20 chapters, and each chapter will cover the life of one individual. He will talk with the people, go into their houses, into their hearts to write about their secret desires and aspirations. He won't be seeking for parallels between lives, like Plutarch did, because he saw that as already given. All lives are already parallel. Each life is comparable to another life regardless of circumstance. People desire the same things. They only differ in how they allow their aspirations to be modified by the dominant values of their society. All aspire to be happy. He didn't know if the result would be a true story. He didn't care. In the final analysis, he will be writing the book for himself. The first name on his list of persons was his father, because he still don't know who his father was or what are driving him and others like him. Then his brother, because if he really understood his brother, then he will also come to understand himself. They were one person. Then his uncle Ilya, because he saw the way forward and was unstinting in his push for it. His auntie Marina, because she was the mother he never had. And if he could understand her, then we come to understand all mothers. Zara, not only because he loved her, but because she remained rooted to Katie and could see all that was beautiful in it. But at the same time, she kept her arms open to other people and others and other ideas and places because of her generosity. Drink water, because in a way he owed him his life. Demai, because Mamu had already gathered so much material on him, and because if he could demystify him and others like him, then he could understand the limitations of tradition and also its possibility. The Waziri, because he was evil, and every book should have at least one evil person in it. And Graves, because he would like to know what's run across his mind as he fell to his death from the Kilang Peak. And Kai, and Malai, and Pastor Miller. But first, he will start with his uncle Aruna. What sort of demons will drive a man to kill himself? Yesterday, Auntie Marina complained that she had seen Aruna's ghost in her room, trying to talk to her. He looked unhappy, she said. Mamo had tried to calm her down, saying it was perhaps her imagination or her ill health. Since she came back from the police cell 2 days after Lamamo's death, she had been sickly, had suffered a mid-stroke, and had spent days in the hospital. And now she was seeing ghosts. He will write about that too, but for the moment, he had to overcome this enemy. Soon after the burial, he had written a long letter to Lamamo's wife, telling her of her husband's death, explaining the circumstances, concluding rather feebly with, "Do not mourn too much. I know how hard this request is, but your pain will be eased by the knowledge that he died fighting not for himself, but for others. The people here will always remember him as a hero." The whole village turned out for his funeral. He told her that Lamamo's last wish was for her to come to Keti. As he waited for her reply, he tried to imagine what kind of person she was, how she will adjust to life in the village, Often, he would take out a picture from Lamamo's wallet and stare at her young, determined face. Auntie Marina was more nervous than him, and every day she would ask him if the reply had come yet, and what kind of food Bintu might like, and what room to put her in. They had bought a new mattress and other bits of furniture for Lamamo's room, where they had finally decided to put her. I hope when she finds out that he actually died in this room, she won't be too upset, Marina said. So he sat down and waited, like he had done most of his life, waited for the dark patches to make sense, for the jigsaw pieces to form a pattern. Sometimes when the door opened, he will look up, open it will be Zara. He had not seen or heard from her since that day at the guest house. Maybe she had gone back to South Africa, or maybe she had met someone new and married again. As her ex-husband said, she had a talent for that. What are you peering at? Marina asked. She was walking around the room, and at the moment she was at the other end by the bed. She grunted as she bent and tasted the bed spring by pressing hard with both hands on the mattress. She pulled up the sheet and frowned at them. Something in my eyes, Mamo replied. He was staring into the mirror, looking into his eyes for 30 signs of death. He knew the sign. He had seen them in his brother's eyes just before he died, and also in his father's eyes. And though he had been too young to recognize them, he had seen them in his uncle Aruna's eyes a day before he hung himself from the flame tree. It was a shadow, like an eclipse, around the brows, a lack of focus in the eyes, as if they were gazing at some shifting preternatural shore far beyond life itself. But his eyes were normal. Don't you think we should repaint the room? Marina asked. Bintu's letter had arrived early in the morning today, and now they were getting the room ready for her. The letter said she would be arriving in a week. Auntie Marina ran her hand on the wall and examined it under the light, trying to see if the paint had come off on her fingers. Nothing wrong with the painting, he said. She asked for about the 100th time. Would she like okra? Do you think, or maize with baobab leaf soup? Of course, eggs. Mamo reassured her that there was nothing to worry about. Just make sure she gets a lot of fruit. She is pregnant. He went and stood by the window, staring out into the mango grove. It was almost dark outside. The last light of the evening hung over the mango leaves in weak orange patches. The mosquitoes coming in through tiny holes in the protective gauze bulged around his eyes and nose. He waved them away impatiently. A huge piece of the grove had been cleared, and now a concrete structure, already at lintel level, had replaced most of the trees. He could hear voices calling from inside the structure, children playing hide and seek. Don't forget to close the door, Auntie Marina said as she left the room. Bintu. Mamo first noted that she was sensibly dressed. She wore a light cotton gown that fell to just above her ankles. Her head was covered with a thin silk scarf. She gathered the gown in her hand as she got out of the taxi, her pregnancy making her move slowly and painfully. She will be almost 7 months pregnant now, Mamo calculated as he went forward to meet her. She raised her hand and covered her eyes against the blinding afternoon sun. You look much younger than your picture, he told her as he led her into the house. When she did not respond immediately, he realized how unsuitable his words had been for the occasion. This was their first meeting, and she was perhaps as nervous as he was. His intention had been to make the atmosphere less awkward, more welcoming. A few neighborhood kids were struggling with their bags, arguing about whose turn it was to carry them. And you look exactly like your brother, only you are thinner and taller, she responded after a while. Her voice was soft and low. Her English had the same Liberian accent that Lamamo's had had. He was glad to notice the lack of formality in her direct and unremitting stare. She sat down as soon as they entered the living room and kicked off her shoes. Her face was lined and there were bags beneath her eyes, as if she had not slept in a long time. He went and threw open the window. It is so hot today. Auntie Marina came in with a cup of water. Rifkatu came in after her with a bottle of Fanta on the tray. This is my aunt, he said, still standing, unable to sit down. Lamamo must have told you that our mother died the day we were born. Auntie Marina is the one who brought us up. She is our mother. Auntie Marina went to the visitor and took her hand in hers, smiling into her eyes. You look tired, she said in Hausa. Mamo translated into English. She said you look tired and you must rest now. She will show you to your room. Your bag is already there. There is so much to talk about, but first, rest. If you need anything, just call me. I will be in the living room. I would like to see the grave, please. We do that tomorrow, he began, but she didn't let him finish. No, today, please. He nodded. The woman left the room the women left the room hand in hand. In the evening, he took her to the burial ground. The path from the house wound up through the mahogany trees to the foot of the hill, where goats graze on the dry, almost non-existent grass. Most of the graves were plain mounds of red earth under the baobab trees with no headstone on them. Lamamo's grave was next to Lamang's, but Mamo did not bother to point out his father's grave to Bintu, as she knelt before the concrete headstone bearing the simple words, Lamamo Lamang, 1963 to 1994. She had brought with her a wreath of red carnations whose petals were already wilting in the heat. She must have bought it in the state capital. Now she carefully laid it before the headstone. Then she ran her hand over the words, muttering some silent, private words of goodbye. Mamo stood a little distance away. Close by under a baobab tree, a group of children stood watching them curiously. The burial ground, goats, trees, people, headstones, and mounds was tinted red by the setting sun, which could just be seen on top of the hills. Her shoulders began to shake silently, and when she finally stood up, he saw the tears. He took her hand and helped her straighten up. He felt her pain, yet he did not know what to say to comfort her. They were strangers, even though she was now family, his brother's widow. She looked so frail, her hand in his felt light, so thin. He said he would be gone for only 2 weeks. I waited and waited and waited. And then I got your letter. It was terrible, terrible. I did not know where to turn or what to do. She sobbed. He patted her hand silently. He wanted to tell her everything will be fine, but he kept quiet. That night, after the evening meal, they sat out on the veranda. It was not yet 8 p.m., but already the night had grown silent. Occasionally, voices from outside could be heard passing. The lights from the bulb in the veranda shone dully into the huge, dark compound in front of them, illuminating the square patch of ground that Mamo wanted to turn into a garden when the rains returned. Auntie Marina, after fussing over Bintu's meal and ensuring that she had everything she needed for the night, had gone to bed. The girl had gone out to play. How peaceful the village is, Bintu whispered, as if talking to herself. Mamo listened to her voice, trying to discern from it what kind of person she was. He could do that easily with most people, but he found Bintu difficult to read. Her eyes, her voice, her gestures were polite and sufficient, never excessive. He never really talked much about his life before we met, but he talked about you all the time. He said how much he missed you. We had a rather lonely childhood, Mamo said softly. She was listening to him attentively, as if expecting him to say more. And when he did not, she said, "Please tell me more. That is why I came here, to find out more about him. All the things he never told me. I don't know why, but I have to know. There are things I want to know too about you. about Liberia. But first, I will tell you everything, he said. He looked up as if for inspiration. The hills were black, ominous ox in the night. The fire had gone, the fire had long since stopped burning on them. A month ago, the police, perhaps having decided that the village has been sufficiently pacified, had suddenly pulled out and returned to the city. But not until after they had indulged in one final orgy of gunshots and house-to-house intimidation. Mamo hardly knew where to start. He was not particularly fond of talking about himself, and to talk about Lamamo would definitely be to talk about himself. He took a deep breath and began. You could say we were the perfect twins, almost. We complemented each other. What I did not have, my brother had, and what he did not have, I had. I was always ill and weak. My brother was the opposite. He was healthy and bold and reckless. I listened, he talked. I was introverted, he was extroverted. He was the one who always stood up to our father. But being too interrupted, and in the gloom of the veranda, you could see her shaking her head as if in confusion. Those were the things he said about you. He said you were the bold one, the one that always stood up to your father. Mamo shook his head. Time had blurred his memory, or perhaps he was just being kind to me. He stretched out his hand, laughing. Look at my hands. Do they look strong and bold? No, I was born with a sickle cell disease. I'm lucky to still be alive. But anyway, top of that hill and wait for airplanes to pass. Whenever they did, we would shout and scream and pretend it was up there. There we go, we will scream. We will imagine ourselves